Hey guys, Buckeye Bar guys. We wanted to thank you guys for tuning in to us here on Buckeye Bar Talk. Great show we got coming up today. We're really looking forward to you guys listening and watching it. But just wanted to remind everybody, just remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the all notifications bell, that way anytime a new show comes up, you guys will be alerted to it. And don't forget to like the video and comment on the video. All interactions with us helps us continue to grow, and we appreciate your support. Now to the show. Welcome everybody to Buckeye Bar Guys here on Buckeye Bar Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
Big episode today. This is our spring football edition. We are here on Friday, April 15th or 16th, the day before the spring game. So pretty psyched about that. We're looking forward to this. We know it's a glorified practice,
right,
but it's still nonetheless it's football, and it's something that at least can talk about then afterwards. So again, pretty stoked about that. So we will be getting into the just stuff about the spring game later. But real quick, we just wanted to start off with a couple other things. We have Justin Fields coming up. We'll talk about him, and then we'll get into Brian Hartline's press conference, and then talk about the rosters and for the spring game, and then move into just the things we kind of want to see for tomorrow and stuff. Just a reminder to everybody, we are starting a email newsletter. It's buckeyebartalk.substack.com. The newsletter is called The Battle Cry. Its debut edition will be on Monday, this coming Monday. So it'll be all about the spring game. And so go to that, to the address, put your email in, and it's free. It'll be sent out once a week, most likely on Mondays, and it'll be just another cool way for us to interact with you guys. Just give some opinions and kind of long and writing form.
Sure.
Stuff that we don't necessarily can always hit on in talking form, just adding a little bit maybe more specifics to thoughts and stuff like that. So really something I'm looking forward to, and it'll be really fun to do. So how you doing, John, today?
Mike, I forgot what these evening ones were like. You and I, we've gotten this routine of doing Saturdays kind of like early, midday, and I'm a little beat today. So
yeah,
tired, but I'm here. We're at the weekend. We got a spring game. Like you said, it's a glorified practice, but it's always something you and I have, and I think a lot of Buckeye fans have looked forward to. And it was just such a shame we didn't get one last year. So I think that just makes it like extra anticipation for this game.
It's always kind of fun. It's fun. And everybody has their own hot takes in their own way. So it's like, what are you watching? What are you not watching? Who's behind? Who's ahead?
Yeah,
how many years? I think back at different years and just thinking of like guys that have just like balled out in the spring game, and I'll be like, man, that guy's gonna be for real. And then you just don't see him at all on the season time.
The one that stood out and you saw him was Malik Hooker to me.
Yeah, that we both said that, and I'm just like, I remember watching him. I'm like, he could be the real deal.
It's like having one-handed interceptions,
and they ended up being the real deal. So
yes, he was.
But yeah, so there's just a couple guys come to mind that like really like just are awesome, and then it's like you don't see them, and then there's other guys that there's injuries. Everything comes to play with these. There's people that don't show up and that are there playing in come fall time, and they look unbelievable. So
yeah,
it's always a good experience. I'm looking forward to it. But before we get into it, I think we just wanted to hit up a couple things about Justin Fields. He had his second pro day this week because his first pro day wasn't, even though he did great, from everything we watched and actually listening reading a couple scouts online and stuff like that, he looked phenomenal, and yet here we are and having to do a second one.
And he did well in this one, and you're still hearing some of the same nonsense that we were hearing before, but just like, this is a thing. And I don't even remember, I don't know if he announced that he was doing a second pro day before that, like the hit piece, came out that he has no effort, he doesn't try. I can't remember if he did or not. Maybe he didn't. Maybe that's why he did this. But you don't, especially when you do well in a pro day, there is no reason for you to go out there again. And yet he went out there again. So yeah, you can tell how serious this kid is about trying to get drafted highly.
Yeah. And I don't blame him. I'd be really mad that you do. Yeah. Like you said, you don't do a second pro day when you do well in the first one, because, you're only possibly hurting yourself. This is all positioning in the draft, I mean, I know it's a little different nowadays because they actually are slotted where they're going to get paid, and it all depends on what they pay the first pick. But
Right.
where the slots, I mean, it's not back. I mean, back when Peyton Manning was drafted, and a couple years after that, when like Tim Couch and stuff, when just boatloads. I mean, these guys were making more money than veterans in the league because
it was a screwed up system.
That was just the name of the game. But so some of that has changed, but still there is like Charlie Casserly, he had up that he thinks he's going to fall to 24, and there's just no. First of all, I think that's crazy, because even if the craziest thing happens and Justin Fields is the fourth quarterback off the board, if the 1, 2, and 3 are quarterbacks and none of them are Justin Fields, somebody's coming up to take Justin Fields, because nobody's going to risk that that is a position that's like, somebody's got to come take him, because nobody's going to let him fall, because
right. Like I hear you. And that's like, and I think he had on there that the Washington football team, they were going to trade up to take Trey Lance, but it was even like they took him like in that it's either like 13 or 14. He has that projected. I mean, what about the Falcons? What about, the Broncos? What about these teams that we've all heard all along that they're going to look for their future at quarterback now?
Yeah. I mean, there's just
the Patriots. Like when
Patriots are sitting at 15, if they don't move up, I just don't see them just letting him fall any further. I mean, I know, Bill thinks maybe in his head that I could do another Tom Brady thing, but I have a feeling if he likes Justin Fields enough, and Josh likes Justin Fields enough, and somehow he's sitting there at 15, they're going to take him.
I mean, I don't know. They all looked very impressed at the pro day. So he did well again. But we know this, like, and I saw some guys that, because the SEC Twitter people, they all like to run their mouths and not know anything what they're talking about, and how Justin Fields doesn't have an arm. Like, Justin Fields throws the best deep ball in America.
He throws better than any one of the other ones.
I mean, I'm sorry, Mac Jones. What does Mac Jones do differently than Dwayne Haskins did? That Dwayne Haskins was like crucified for him when he was going into the draft.
Exactly.
Mac doesn't have the best work ethic. He's shown that he doesn't necessarily take the game serious at all times, and he doesn't do anything different than Dwayne. He hits short passes. He goes safe. He plays safe and lets his players create off of that. Yeah, which is fine. And I mean, the guy
can work.
The guy can make a deep throw.
And
we've seen it.
And we know Dwayne can make deep throws. I mean, that wasn't necessarily what he was always looking for. He was looking for get my completions, and then but Justin always looked down the field a lot more than him, and basically has the same completion rating. Right. I mean, there's not much separation between him and Dwayne. I mean, you never would have thought that after just how accurate Dwayne was, that Justin would come in and be just as accurate. And here we are.
Dwayne's yards were after the catch. Justin's were in the air. That's the difference.
And so it is crazy to me that some of these people, I mean, first of all, I mean, I've always said I feel Trevor is the top pick in the draft, but Justin's always been number 2. Now, I don't want Justin to go to the Jets because
hell no.
I mean, to me, that's like, I mean, and no offense to anybody that might like the mean green, that might be, I know Buckeye fans are everywhere. So, I mean, there could be somebody that is in the New York area that's
a dumpster fire organization.
But like, to me, they're even ran poorly than the Browns. I mean, the Browns have just maybe in recent history are started. I mean, the Jets, and you're in a huge market and they're ran like crap. I mean, it's like, you take a coin flip there. Who's the worst ran program in New York between them and the Knicks? And
I feel like it's almost like a coin toss who I would feel worse for, whoever gets drafted by the Washington football team or whoever gets drafted by the Jets.
Yeah, because the Jets just have a history is a crappy organization, just how they ran it. And then, Washington just has Dan Snyder, which is,
I don't know. I don't know if Haskins will do anything. I don't know and it sounds like maybe the Steelers are going to be looking for like a future there that he's might not even be their long-term replacement plans for Ben Roethlisberger, but I'm happy he's out of that.
Yeah, and I mean the Steelers
shit show.
And as much as I like to hate on the Steelers, I mean the Steelers are an actually well-ran organization.
Oh, absolutely, they are. Yeah. We don't like them because we're Browns fans, but they're running fine.
There was a lot of years I wish the Browns ran like the Steelers.
Oh, absolutely.
So, but getting back to Justin, even if the Steelers wanted Justin, they're going to they can't just rest on that he's going to be there at 24, because we've seen this in quarterbacks. I mean, once they start going, they go, because there's other teams that want one and they get scared and they're like, well, I got to come up and get him. And
I understand, like, Aaron Rodgers is such an anomaly in the NFL. I mean, you saw it, the next year with Brady Quinn, but I think Brady had more questions about what he could be in the NFL. And I guess Justin's getting some of those too, but I could not see Justin Fields falling into the 20s. And I can't see him falling past 10.
And, that's in the early to mid 2000s. So it's still a different football era.
Oh,
then.
sure.
I mean, there's still running backs are still praised in the NFL by then. I mean, I know guys like Zeke go early now, but Saquon, but that happened a lot more frequently then.
You need a real special talent, though, to be a top 5 draft pick as a running back.
And even receivers have kind of lost their luck. I mean, back like when you think about that area, I mean, there's guys like Braylon and those guys that are going in those top 5 picks and top 10 picks that you don't even see that much anymore in receivers.
Well, you don't got a lot of Calvin Johnsons anymore.
But it's just, there's so many of them because college football has just become such a passing league, that why would I take a receiver at 8 and pay him 8 money when I could take a defensive end? And that's, much harder to come by. And, I can go find a receiver that's at the same quality at, my second round pick. So
that's a guy that people have slipping in the draft right now, Devontae Smith. And, you see all these like Alabama fans or even Ohio State fans that he tortured in that national title game. And they're like, oh, I can't understand how he's slipping. And that's a guy I'm like, he is probably an exceptional worker. I mean, the guy won the freaking Heisman Trophy, but I can see how he is slipping in the draft.
Yeah.
Justin Fields, who has all the freaking tools to go along with being an exceptional worker, how that guy has gone lower than 2 now because Zach Wilson's like the flavor of the month. He's the Mormon Mahomes is like crazy to me.
Yeah. And of course, I mean, it's interesting to see if there's some like, if is there some smoke out there and Justin's actually number 2 or number 3 as one of those teams trying to,
I think Zach Wilson's locked up with the Jets. I do think Justin Fields will be a 49er though, or someone's going to trade up to 3.
And I would like him to go out of those teams. Like, I think Urban taking Trevor's probably the smarter choice just because, it's, even though he might love Justin and he's been around Justin now a little longer, just because, Urban's been around the football around Ohio State and, and don't take anything like that as any insult. That's just kind of survivability for Urban. I think that if Trevor is a bust, I think, I've said this before. I think
that's a much safer bust.
I think that Urban survives that.
There's nobody ahead of him that's second guessing that pick.
I mean, that who were you going to take? Somebody else? You were going to take Zach Wilson over Trevor Lawrence?
Right.
No. So, but yeah, if the Jets take Zach Wilson, that's fine. I would love the 49ers. I think, the 49ers taking, that would be the perfect offense for Justin because, that is a running style offense that they use the running backs and those zone reads. That what's great for a quarterback with a strong arm is then play action passes going down the field. And I think Shanahan would develop a perfect offense for him. It would be, I don't know if you can't say that that's, Justin Fields is John Elway. He would have to do a lot to prove that he is at that level, but he's got the arm strength as John Elway. And
probably
his dad,
I'm probably not the velocity,
but his dad, Shanahan's dad grew up with that. And I just think that would be a smart pick for Shanahan. Be like, that could be a John Elway-esque.
Oh, sure.
Quarterback,
the athleticism, he could definitely throw an accurate deep ball. I don't know if he could throw a ball through like a brick wall like John could do, but Justin's got some serious arm talent.
Yeah, so I'm really interested to see what happens. We'll get a little bit more into the draft after the spring game, probably maybe starting not with the show right after the spring game, but the one following that, because because that's coming up. I want to talk about it. This Justin Fields thing is kind of perplexing to me. I don't know why this is the flag. This is the mountain everybody's dying on is him. Like, I know maybe Zach Wilson. Nobody. I get it. saying Mac Wilson and or Mac Jones and Zach Wilson, saying one of them
I
or
say Mac Wilson's a linebacker for the Browns.
one of those guys falling down, that's not a controversial take. Be like,
I don't think
who are
so.
those guys? The controversial take, the one that's bringing in people watching stuff. I mean, in ESPN, they are into the entertainment business, and it's about getting
More so than sports.
and so it is about getting clicks and getting viewers and all this stuff. So I mean, there could be some of that is dealing with this, that like, hey, let's take a hot take on, to me, who's still the second best quarterback.
I mean, and that's not even like talking about the Mortensen take or report that Justin Fields, playing baseball at Ohio State. Justin Fields doesn't play baseball.
Yeah.
I know most of you guys know that. Justin Fields does not play baseball at Ohio State. He was a great baseball player in high school. He chose football. And how his throwing motion screwed up because, he throws like he's playing baseball. And I'm just, when did we ever hear anything about Justin Fields' throwing motion in college? I've never noticed that it was that awful.
There's a lot of throwing motions I've had issues with over the years. I mean, Terrell Pryor, thinking about his throwing motion and stuff like that. But even Mahomes played baseball. I mean, what is his?
Well, Mahomes, Russell Wilson. I mean, their baseball careers made them better quarterbacks.
Yeah. Kyler Murray played baseball. I mean, what is this?
John Elway played baseball. I've never heard of anybody being a baseball player that would ever affect them as a quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always people always make it sound like that improves them as quarterbacks.
Well, I've always heard it improves their arm strength and
arm strength and that they could throw from different angles.
Yeah.
No one's ever been given a hard time about that.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I do give more to pass because of his health issues. I don't know. Maybe he's not thinking clearly in his head anymore. And ESPN's been known to, maybe some people that shouldn't be on a
camera anymore,
that they still keep them on cameras.
Sunshine Scooter.
Yeah. So, I don't know. And I like Mort. I've always, Mort to me has always been a good, good draft day analyst, but he was way off on that one.
Yeah,
so I don't know that, where that was coming from. So
baseless claims. I don't.
Yeah. All right, so we'll get it now. Well, like I said, we'll talk more about draft as we get past the spring game.
Yes.
But it's just, we wanted to touch on this because it's just this craziness that just seems like it just won't die down, and
it's ongoing. And I think it's pissing off a lot of Ohio State fans because we've all seen how he plays. At first you're gonna brush it off. It's oh, these guys aren't watching, and now it's these guys are sabotaging his draft stats.
Yeah, it's bothering me. I won't lie. And granted, we've seen this where, that's just the last point on it. I mean, we have seen where supposedly guys' drafts are getting sabotaged, and then they end up being drafted fine and right where they were supposed to be drafted. And
yeah,
like I've always said before, if Mel Kiper and the Todd McShays and some of these other guys, if they were so good at picking talent, they would be making $10 million a year picking talent for they would be making more money than ESPN pays them, which is still good money. Don't get me wrong. Mel Kiper makes good money for ESPN.
Right.
He would make more money as a as a GM for an NFL team if he was that good.
Well, didn't Najee Harris say that Todd McShay could kiss his ass?
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
I like Najee.
All right. So on to the Buckeyes, the current team.
Yes, sir.
So Brian Hartline, he had a press conference yesterday. And so it wasn't a long press conference, but we'll get into that. I love when Brian, like I said, it wasn't long, but I love when he talks. He's just so direct, and and it's so funny because they're all they have some really good press conferences on this coaching staff, and we talked about it before, but they all have kind of different styles.
Right,
and Hartline's probably the most direct out of all of them, but it's great. And then LJ's different, but it's great.
Larry's all wholesome. Yeah, and Combs is all energy.
And and they're all. It's just even Al Washington's really good. I thought Barnes did a pretty good. I mean, it seems like Corey they're hiding, but probably because they're a little nervous that he might say something.
Yeah. He might tip his hand.
That is the biggest. That's the biggest. That is the biggest
week.
battle, and Day might be. I mean, Day wouldn't be the first head coach that keeps a coach not up there, not putting a coach out there because that's the biggest battle of the spring. So, all right. So basically, he started off. He was asked about Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and he said he's the best blocker in the room, which is second year kid. I mean, it's phenomenal to hear that. And considering all the time he lost last year, that before the season started.
Kind of surprising just with Olave coming back for another year. Wilson's been there for a minute, and that was something that, of course,
It stood out to me when he said it, because that's been over. I mean, honestly, if you think back, that's been like a really thing that's been hit on since Tressel was the head coach.
absolutely.
And Urban even took that to the next level, that you don't see the playing field unless
you can block.
And and now Day's like completely living up to that too.
Yeah.
That is the first responsibility of we're a running team first, and that is your responsibility. Is not only you block for your running backs, but you block for your buddies in the receiving core.
Sure.
And so, and it's just the fact that they already said that about him, because, and it takes some time to really get the blocking aspects of down. And we've seen where, like I remember when, I know it's different running backs, but I remember when Zeke was talking about that with Weber, that, he needs to get better as a blocker. That's the first responsibility, to be able to block. And, that's always been the mindset there. So when he said that, that was like the first thing that really stood out to me, being like, wow, because Olave and Wilson are both good blockers, and that's not taking anything. They're great blockers, and that's not taking anything away from them. But the fact that he said it was just awesome. He was asked about, how they're moving them around with pairings and stuff like that. And he basically said that, that's kind of the most important thing, is just finding, be able to run him in several different pairings, and he's showing up. He's looking really good. He started off really well. He had a couple days in there in the middle where, maybe he started slacking off a little bit, or, just, spring, but then he bounced right back out of it. And, it sounds like from different things we've been reading from some of the insiders, and now listen to Hartline, he's right up there as having one of the best springs out of anybody.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Really looking forward to him. I think he could do a lot. And so that really got me excited. He was asked about Fleming. Julian has been, he's hampered with an injury he had back in high school, and it's kind of been, nagging. I think it was the shoulder.
Because he said he wears the linebacker.
Yeah. And so it's been a nagging injury for him. He's had a couple surgeries, and still bothers him stuff. He's been, a little banged up for it. So he's still he lost a lot of time last year. And, Hartline, basically said a lot of that was unfortunate, because, he's a special kid. Brian, with the big comment he gave him, he said he's maybe size and speed wise one of the best receivers.
Never seen anything like that.
Yeah. And that's Brian Hartline's played around a lot of players, and for him to come say that that's pretty phenomenal.
Did he say he's like one of the toughest dudes he's ever seen? Yeah,
exactly. And so and I've always I always wondered, like to me with him, and we've brought this up before, it was always amazing to me that he was the number one recruit, because I'm like, he came from a wing T offense, and I know what that means. The receivers don't get the ball much.
No, you got. You got to be pretty special. That's like Calvin Johnson, deciding to go to Georgia Tech.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was some good things to say. His studies obviously still dealing with injuries, but he's looking good. For the most part. Basically, he was asked on kind of the experience, what what does Olave and Wilson bring with the experience to the room, and he said there's experience everywhere, and basically what that means is that they're not going to have they can't have lower standards than excellence. That the highest standard they need to have is the best. And and again, he's the most direct talking out of all the coaches. And it's true. That's what, as fan base, that's what we expect out of them. And, you have one of the toughest fan bases to please, and, in the country, and, and you got a fairly tough, media in different parts of it. The good thing the Ohio State media does do is, some of them are homers, but when they lose, they all ask tough questions.
Oh, sure.
And
yeah.
So, and they're not shy to ask tough questions. So, the experience. And he said there's experience everywhere, though. We have experience on the line. We have experience in the tight ends. We have, it's not just the receivers, and it's everybody. And those guys have to, lead on. And then the thing I really loved what he said is when he said he loves what's going on with the young quarterbacks right now. That he said that means that the receivers can't let them
Oh,
down.
right,
And
yeah.
it demands more from the receiving core having a young thing. So he's like, there's years where, Justin there are times Justin did things that got us off the hook. Now it's our turn to go do things to get these guys off the hook. And
And he has a hell of a room to do it too.
yeah. So, I mean, and he just said they have to aim for excellence. And I loved when he says stuff like that because it's putting, Brian Hartline, he's definitely, I have a feeling any receiver goes into his room and he starts giving him a hard time and why did you miss that catch? Well, the quarterback threw it to the wrong. I don't think that flies in Brian Hartline's room that, no, you
got to catch it.
You got to catch it. And you turned the wrong way.
Right.
And I just think that's what his mindset is. And like I said, he's been around the game for so long. He understands the game. He understands that stuff comes back on the receivers. Quarterbacks take a lot of the blame, a lot more than I think a lot of people think that they do. But to him, the receivers, it's your responsibilities. And when he said that it's our job, it makes us demand more of ourselves, then that just the high standards he puts them at.
Quarterbacks do get a ton of the credit too.
No, they do. And that's, they take a lot of credit and take a lot of the blame. So
yeah, I mean, quarterback shoulder most the criticism and praise.
And then so he talked about Emeka and Marvin Harrison Jr. And I mean, they're not acting like freshmen. It's like, and we've been hearing a lot about both of them.
They already got their black stripes off. I mean, Marvin Harrison, I've heard nothing but amazing things from week one about him. Just that, in the workout room, he's great.
And
he conducts himself as a professional. Emeka, you could tell when that kid came on campus that he's already been taking a workout seriously.
Marvin Harrison was the one that he was kind of like my wild card one of my wild cards coming into the season because I knew Emeka was going to find his way onto the field. I mean,
oh yeah,
it's just the type of offense that they like to run that, he's the number one receiver in the country. I mean, you just know that he was going to make it on the field. But Marvin Harrison, I'd be like, his dad is a pro. So, he knows things that none of these guys know because, his dad was an all pro NFL receiver. So, and he's bigger than his dad. So it's like now
much bigger than his dad.
Now he is maybe even more of a true size as a big body wide receiver with, and his dad's probably been teaching him all the minute details of being a receiver.
Oh, sure. All the little nuances and everything.
And, obviously I think he's going to end up being a lot better than what Brian Rubisky was. But I always said, and you knew Brian's dad was a NFL receiver and, played in the NFL, coached in the NFL when Brian first started Ohio State because he got a lot of things a lot quicker than you were used to. And I just think it's going to be the same with Marvin Harrison. Now you got a guy that's maybe just completely a better athlete. And now he's all those things, all the fine details, I think is already built into him. So
add that he's 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah. So I think this could be really special. I think this kid could put fireworks up this year. And and just to hear with some of the stuff that Hartline said about him and Emeka, just, and he said a lot of it, they've been healthy. So they haven't missed any assignments because they've been out there. And, but, he said they're working hard. Nothing's been seeming like that's been too much for them to handle. And I love seeing it. I mean, like I said, they got such a deep receiving core, and it'll be interesting to see, how well they're able to, take it to the next level and, show up and bring good things to the program. And then kind of speaking on the depth of he was asked his final question about if he thought they were going to do more than 12 personnel, that they ran a lot of 12 personnel last year. So 2 tight ends. Are they going to run more receivers this year, be able to get more receivers in because of that? And he basically said the great thing that Coach Day does is he puts us in the right positions for our strengths on offense. And so he said, we're going to be able to run a lot of different player personnel groups. And that's always been the strengths of the team, to be able to throw all kinds of different combinations at people. And honestly, I think that's the way you got to coach them, because there's so many of them. There's only one football, and you're not going to be able to get everybody the ball every time that they want. But by playing as many player personnel groups in and getting as many different guys in as possible, I mean, they're going to be so hard to defend because, and it's not even talking about running backs. I mean, their receivers and their tight ends. I mean, these guys are just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I mean, you think about all the receivers that they got, and then you add in Rucker. That, I mean,
Oh,
it's
absolutely. I know.
It's going to be just so hard to even defend them.
I mean, think of like receiving the ball, just the veterans you have coming back, and Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jeremy Rucker. And that's not adding in all of these super high rated, young guys that they have in there. So you have those three as primary pass catchers. And then you have even like Juice Williams, who doesn't have the stars like some of these other guys have, or wasn't as high as some of these other guys are. But yeah, I mean,
you got to account for him on the field, because you know how fast he is. He's caught touchdown passes down the field. So, if he gets behind you, he's very capable of
taking it to the house.
So like
you can't let him outrun you.
Yeah.
And that takes your safety out of there. So Garrett Wilson going back outside, love it or hate it.
So we've heard that he's going back outside because JSN's going to be probably the third starter, and he's going to go inside. I think JSN's best fitted to play inside more than he is to play outside. And I think that I would slightly say that Garrett's also better suited to play inside than he is outside, but he can play outside.
Right.
I've seen him excel on the outside. There's not many cornerbacks in the country that's going to be able to stand up again. I mean, yeah, he's a silly advantage over any safety or a linebacker, but
he can out jump any corner, though.
I don't know. There's only going to be a couple corners in the Big Ten, even let alone once you get past the Big Ten, that are going to even be on his playing field. So I'm fine with it. I mean, if that's what the coaches feel is the best thing, if they would come out and say that somebody else, and if Fleming, let's say Fleming was the third one, and I'm nothing against Julian, I'm just picking him to pick his name. I mean, you could pick any of these names. And they came out and said Julian was our third guy, and we just think he's better at slot. I would be really against that. I'd be like, no, I like Garrett Wilson better at slot than I like Julian. And so I'm okay with this, because I think Jaxon will be fine in the middle, and I think he's another one that's gonna just do crazy things and just be hard to guard for anybody in the middle of the field. I mean, just a mismatch on any linebacker or safety you're going to put on him.
And, I heard Ebuka, he's been working out as a slot receiver.
That's fine. And, honestly, I have a feeling Garrett Wilson's going to be playing slot receiver too. They move guys.
They're going to move them around.
They move guys
over.
around and stuff. I mean, that's always kind of been their they don't necessarily. Devin Smith was our outside receiver, and some of the best catches he had were when they moved him in on a slot just to put him on a safety. And I mean, he had some great touchdown catches against that. So, like, they're not afraid to do stuff like that.
I don't know if you'll see too much of it with Olave, but are you telling me like there's not going to be a time that Marvin Harrison Jr. gets on the field when Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson are out there, and Garrett Wilson's going to go down into the slot? It's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And
they're going to be fine.
Yeah, when you got a bunch of guys that can play, I think a lot of the guys can play inside and outside. So that way, yeah, you're right. When Wilson or Harrison comes in, or maybe Julian Fleming comes in, or somebody comes in, or, Juice, and, there'll be times they'll put Juice in the middle just because, like, let's see the safety try to
just run down the field, take that safety with you.
So, and that might be to get Olave or Wilson open in the middle of the field just to get a safety out of there. That might be just because we know it's a mismatch and Juice is going to burn this dude, and he's going to get 6 out of it. And so, yeah, they're going to try all kinds of different things. Brian Hartline, I have so much faith in him after the few years that he's been the coach. They've ran so much better routes than they used to run, and that it doesn't matter where you put any of these guys. I mean, they get open. I mean, that's going back to kind of Fields. I mean, the reason why the dude can look at all his reads. Reason why a lot of times he doesn't look at his reads is that Olave and Wilson are always open for some reason. And either one of them are, Wilson's not necessarily the fastest dude in the world, but somehow seems like he's always open against whoever you put him on.
I mean, he's made some moves on punt return before.
And Olave, he's got great football speed, and
Yeah,
moves. I mean,
you
he's
can tell.
great football player. And Olave wasn't, I mean, he ends up being one of our faster guys, but he was never, when he came into the program, he was never really talked about that. He was, but again, a lot of that is that he finds his way open because he makes great moves.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
taught. And, so I have no problem with how Hartline set things up and Day set things up because I think they know what they're doing.
Right. And I guess that's another issue, like not to go back on this, harp on it too much with the whole Justin Fields like criticisms that, about the reads and everything. Why am I checking down, for a 5-yard gain when if I'm confident I can hold the ball for a half second longer, I'm going to have a 40-yard touchdown. Maybe it's bad practice, but it worked more than it didn't.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so on to the actual spring game. So we got the rosters: Team Buckeye, Team Brutus. So Team Brutus is going to be the one to get the two quarterbacks. So Stroud and Kyle McCord are both on that. And Olave, Fleming, Harrison Jr. and Emeka are going to be the receivers.
Nice.
And Tegan Williams, Mayan Williams are going to be the running back. So nice roster that is. Obviously good.
You can't go wrong with either side.
I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm looking real forward to that receiving core with how they do with those two quarterbacks because, Julian, we didn't get to see a lot last year, and the other two are freshmen, and so it's going to be really interesting to see who's all really truly progressing out of that bunch. And then on Team Buckeye, so this one's going to be Jack Miller, which I will get to in a second. I'm really excited about that one because he's going to get a lot of opportunities to see where he's at. And because I'll say in a minute what I'm thinking. Wilson, Garrett Wilson, Jamison Williams, Jaxon Smith-Njigba with Travion Henderson and Crowley as the running back. So again, a really solid team. Just real quick before just my thought on Miller, really interesting to see between Henderson and Crowley because I really want to see where Crowley's at because if we said this a couple weeks ago, if Crowley is really ready if he's healthy and he's ready to be that next day, he could I've kind of always been that Henderson's going to be the day one starter type guy. And Crowley could really put a wrench in that for me if he really shows up. And,
Crowley's, he's good.
Because what type of player he was in high school. And he looks like the real deal too. It's him and Henderson. And so I think
I heard Steel Chambers has been running excellent in the spring.
Those all there's all a lot of good talent in that running back room, just like everywhere else. The one thing I'm interested with Miller is because he's going to get a lot of opportunities. I think he's kind of the one that's in the fan base's eyes is just on the outside looking in, not in the coach's eye. Cause I think Day and a lot of them's all said it, that they're all kind of even.
Yeah.
But I think in the fan base's eye, a lot of people fell in love with Stroud last year and he got to play a senior season of high school. Miller was hurt, a lot of it. So we got to see a lot of those highlights from Stroud from a senior season. I just think a lot of love came his way from the fan base.
Sure.
And same thing with McCord. He was the big get when he committed to Ohio State. He kept through his commitment. And so I think there's just a lot of love that goes that way. So it'll be interesting to see how Miller handles himself because I'm wondering if he can maybe in the fan base's eyes, capture some of that love back if he looks really good. Because I do think out of the three of them, he is kind of on the outside looking in when it comes to the fans. And I think if he did win the starting job, I would think that he could come a long way that let's just say this. If he wins the starting job in the fall, the way I think that the fan base looks at all three of them, I think there will be a lot more grumbling about him winning the starting job than any of the three from fans.
Is this going to be more civilized than Haskinsboro? Or are we on the eve of the next great debate for Ohio State football?
It'll be it's Columbus, it's Ohio, it's football. It's not much else is going on. So yeah, this is going to be a big debate. In the fan base's eyes, these guys are going to be microscoped to death after this game tomorrow.
I think people have to realize Jack Miller, he was hurt for a couple seasons and he didn't play on a great high school team anyways. I mean, watch the guy's highlights, watch CJ Stroud's highlights. They make a lot of the same throws. They have a lot of the same abilities. Like Jack Miller is not just pocket statue that, can't move, that he's just gotten the benefit of playing poor competition in high school, that he was the only like D1 college or the D1 athlete out there. Like, he didn't have a good team around him.
Yeah.
But Jack Miller can definitely move. And I think, he's healthy. He get the system. He could make a run for this thing.
Yeah.
I'm not counting any of them out.
Yeah. So before we get into the final segment, just a couple other things we wanted to throw out there. So Craig Young and Ronnie Hickman are going to be, their looks right now is both bullets.
I like that they're listed as bullets.
So we've kind of said that there's been some indications that, they are moving towards a 4-2-5, and
long overdue.
I think that the bullet position, finally, we're going to get to see it, because I think that will be, unless it's in a legitimate passing downs, that's your fifth guy.
Yeah.
In the secondary is going to be one of these bullets. And like I said this before, I think the majority of the teams they play in the year, especially the teams that they're going to end up having to play in the playoffs, it makes the most sense for, even in the Big Ten. I mean, but when you get to play those teams like Wisconsin, and they will pop up on your schedule every now and then, then you just prepare for it. I mean, Luke Fickell in 1 week changed his entire defense to a 4-4 pretty much to play the championship game in 2014. So you could change to a 4-3. I mean, most of these kids have ran 4-3s their whole lives.
Oh, absolutely.
So, everybody knows the 4-3 concepts that have played football. I mean, I was no spectacular athlete playing football, but I understand 4-3 because we ran a 4-3. So,
right. And I'll take Ohio State as long as you got Mick Marotti and Larry Johnson with the defensive line. I'll take Ohio State's chances in a 4-2-5 against Wisconsin until they start running it down Ohio State's throat. Guess what? Ohio State's going to have time to adjust to that and still win that game. Ohio State has better athletes everywhere on the field.
Yeah.
And I still think in a 4-2-5, they could beat Wisconsin.
And they've kind of ran. I mean, when you think of even back, when you think of when Darren Lee was there, that was kind of running a 4-2-5. I mean, Darren Lee was an athlete. So, I mean, he was kind of one of those hybrid guys to begin with. So, I mean, they've ran stuff like this before where they've had a undersized linebacker is kind of more of a...
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it's going now anyway.
Yeah, so it's not like it's out of place for them. It's just, it gets them another athlete onto the field. And we've kind of saw maybe a little bit of times over the last couple of years that it hurt them not having that. And, maybe they should have tried it a little bit more. I mean, it was such a big deal was made about it when they were saying that they were going to have a bullet, and it just never has worked out. And I think we're going to finally see it, because I think that's kind of, Combs probably, Carey's learned some stuff from the NFL, and a lot of the NFL teams do have their third linebacker is a hybrid style.
Right.
Like, is he a safety? Is he a linebacker? And
and they don't got to be small guys. I mean, what's his name that was on Clemson? Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah.
Like, he's not tiny.
No. Yeah, exactly. So, so that'll be interesting. G. Scott is listed as a receiver / tight end. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. I said that I'm looking really forward to seeing him as possibly moving into a hybrid role like that, because, I just love those type players.
Yeah.
And, that just gives another weapon that lets him get on the field a little bit more. And you go, if you're running maybe Rutgers taking a play off, and you're running a 3 receiver set, and G. Scott is your tight end. I mean, that's a 4th wide receiver out
sure,
there.
Yeah.
And, I mean, think about a tight end trying to cover him, or not a tight end, a safety covering that guy.
Yeah.
So,
or a linebacker.
Yeah. Just again. And then McCall is listed as a receiver / cornerback. Gave my opinions a couple weeks ago. I don't like him playing corner, but I think there's a lot of places that Mario McCall on offense. I don't like him playing in special teams, but I don't think they've ever given him the true opportunities to really play on offense. I thought he could
have been an all right running back.
And so I wish they would give him more shots on offense. I think he does have the abilities to play offenses. We've seen those highlights before where he can do it. It's just like, I don't know, where it's got to be some sort of disconnect in practice. To me, I've always said that, but
I mean, I know they physically, they must just they have to think physically that he can't be a running back. I don't know what it is, but I've never seen anything why the guy doesn't at least like deserve a chance to get a couple handoffs.
Yeah. So that's kind of just the things. Those are the rosters and stuff. So we're gonna just quickly we'll finish up on we're gonna talk about just kind of the things we want to see, what we're looking forward to. And I've kind of said a couple things already between like Miller and Crowley. So just going, and I have a couple more that I'm thinking of, but just
I mean, obviously quarterback competition.
that's the big one for me.
I'm looking to see, those three guys. We can't make too much of it because I think too much was made of Haskins and Burrow all those years back. But I'm looking to see how those three guys do. Are they noticing people are open? Are they throwing people open? Are they hitting receivers that they need to be hitting? So I think that's going to be important. I look forward to that. I think they're going to throw a lot because they're not doing any tackling or anything like that. So I think there's going to be a lot of throwing. So just how quickly they can diagnose. And then the other one's just, for me personally, defensive backfield is what I'm looking for. Because I just feel like, again, I think that is like the weakness of our team, the weakness of our defense, especially. And I'm just looking forward to seeing how, especially with all that talent at receiver, how these guys do staying on these guys.
Yeah, especially since this is going to be this is a glorified 7-on-7.
Because this is the best receiver room they're going to see all year.
So if I want to see what they look like too. I mean, obviously they've been practicing against these guys. Mm-hmm. I do want to see what the secondary looks like. Quarterback room, that's going to be the biggest one. But it'll be interesting. And I think my biggest goal is to try not to micromanage them or think about them. Like even myself, because like you said, between the Haskins and Burrow thing, and and the coaches never really even made a decision. They would, the Burrow family just made a decision that they felt like it was neck and neck. Urban said it was neck and neck, and they just felt at the end of the day Haskins would win out because he came in against Michigan, and and probably that's what would have happened if they ended up staying neck and neck. And I think, and I've always said this, I think if Burrow would have started with Ryan Day as the offensive coordinator, if Burrow would have started that year, we would have saw much more the Burrow that we saw last year.
Oh, right. And that drives me insane because people are like, well, Burrow was, a 50% passer. He only had 2,000 yards. And if Ryan Day was his coordinator, he would have done, I have no doubt Joe Burrow would have done the same thing as Dwayne.
And he would have went to the NFL. So, you know, like everybody always says that, well, if we would have had, but we would never have gotten Justin Fields. And I think that's wrong because I think Burrow would have left and went to the NFL because he would have been right up there. The same. He would have done exactly.
He already graduated. Right. He already graduated college. He would have been a Heisman finalist. I mean, we're assuming, of course, it's a hypothetical, but I think it's a safe assumption.
I mean, he would have flourished in Ryan's offense just like what.
And who knows? He would have had probably a couple more running yards with Ryan and Urban calling the plays, and he might have won the Heisman that year.
Yeah. So I've always said that. I don't think that. So I don't want to get too down on any of the three because I mean, this is all really, they're all their first passing. Yeah. I mean, they didn't pass at all. The two that played last year didn't pass at all. And McCord's, I mean, they're basically three freshmen. And so when you think about it, and so I'm not going to try to get too down on all of them. I think about what Brian Hartline said is that everybody else needs to rise up. And I think they will. Everybody's going to. So to me, it's just going to be interesting to see where they're at. And how neck and neck, maybe in the coach's eyes, are they after tomorrow?
Yeah. And I just, again, keep your expectations in check. That's because even if one of them has a bad game, that doesn't mean they're a bad player. You know, that we know these are all three good quarterbacks. I guess maybe receivers. I mean, they're all so skilled. I don't know if I'm looking so much for them.
I'm looking at the young guys. I mean, we know Olave's on one team, Wilson's on the other. We know what we're getting out of those guys. Those guys
and they're starters.
Those guys are your starters. They're going to be out there. So I want to see, is Jaxon the third guy? Is one of these other guys?
Do you feel comfortable with these guys taking snaps from putting Garrett Wilson on the bench for one of these guys to give him a rest?
If Olave and Wilson get more rest this year, and it's going to be guys like Harrison and Emeka coming in and Julian Fleming. So I want to see what those guys do. Are they open? Are they looking good? Because, I mean, if those guys start getting open and really looking like they're the real deals too, I mean, God forbid the defenses to have to
Right.
play this team this year.
And no tackle. It's hard to get excited for running backs when you're not tackling guys.
Yeah.
But I think you can still tell when someone has, good vision, exceptional moves. So I'm looking to see what, Trevion Henderson, what he does, how he looks when he's getting the ball.
In the running back room, I mean, I've said that I feel Henderson is the day one starter. I agree. I'm still going with that. I like my end. I want to see, but I don't know how much I'm going to get to tell in my end. I think the biggest thing I'm kind of looking for the running back rooms is how healthy running does Teague and Crowley look. If they, if they look like they're cutting good and, they're running with good speed and they're having good vision and it doesn't seem like their leg injuries are bothering them anymore, then it'll be an interesting room at that point to me.
And you got a full loaded room then too.
So I think that's the two outside of just wanting to see just Trevion touch the ball. I think that's the biggest thing I'm looking at the running back room is just how healthy are those two specifically looking, because that changes a lot of things then possibly, in my opinion. Then if they're looking healthy and they're running healthy, that, they're not running gingerly and they're running with some authority and some confidence, then that could be interesting. And I might then start rethinking some stuff who is the actual day one starter.
Sure.
So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. Anything else you want to throw out there? I mean, I'm interested to see on the defense, but linebackers, there's no tackling, so I can't really, and it sounds like they have some injuries that they're dealing with, and that's kind of why they chose to go that way. So
I didn't really look at who's all on the matchups. I mean, I'm interested to see, how any of the ends do against Munford or NPF, just because that's going to be some of their best competition they're going to have all year. Of course, everyone's still, it's still so early into the season too. So those guys aren't even in, the form that they're going to be in August. So this isn't even going to be the best versions of Thayer Munford and NPF.
And I am looking for,
or is Thayer even playing? Like, I don't know, dude. Those guys don't need to play. So
yeah. I am looking forward to seeing the offense line, because when we talked about O-line a few weeks ago, and when Stud did his press conference last week, we did talk about that. I do think that this is the deepest room that they've had in a really long time. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of that depth, because, there's a real opportunity that they could have a true first team and second team line. They could be 10 guys deep.
And it sounds like Matt Jones is snapping the ball tomorrow. So we're going to see, how do his snaps look? Does it really seem like it's, plausible that he could be that guy moving forward at center and keep Harry Miller at guard? So there's going to be a lot going on. It's going to, I'm just excited that we're getting a spring game again.
Yeah. I look forward to talking about it then on Sunday. We'll do a show. We'll talk about it on Sunday, just our things. And I'm looking forward to, writing some stuff down and releasing it in the newsletter, the battle cry. Remember, BuckeyeBarTalk.substack.com. Really looking forward to really breaking down the spring game. And that will be sent out Monday morning. So, anything else you got?
That's all, man.
All right, let's get on out of here.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming in tonight to the Buckeye Bar. I'm John.
And I'm Mike.
OH.
Go Buckeyes.
Go Buckeyes. Thank you for tuning in to this week's Buckeye Bar Guys on Buckeye Bar Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that all notifications bell so you see when new content is added. And please remember to like and share so we can grow our audience. Don't be afraid to comment. We want to know what you're thinking, and we want to know what content to add for you guys. OH.
IO.